Hello and welcome to Ethical Hacking and Penetration Testing, brought to you by Eduonics. This is Chapter 7, Wireless Network Security. We've covered most of the things, and we're going to be covering wireless sniffing using Wireshark and a few ideas on how to protect wireless networks as well. So I'm sure anybody who has done anything in IT will have had a need to use Wireshark before, whether it be to look for some rogue traffic or just to see what's going on in your network. It's available for Windows and Linux, and not a lot of people know, but you can use it for wireless sniffing as well. It's formerly called Ethereal. It's free, and its software does interface with not any, but 802.11 client cards and passively captures 802.11 packets being transmitted within the wireless LAN. It's easy to install. There's instructions on the website. A problem that you'll likely run into is that Wireshark may not display any packets after starting to capture using your existing 802.11 client card, especially if you do run Windows. The issue is that many of the 802.11 cards don't support promiscuous mode. In this case, you can try turning promiscuous mode on or off from inside Wireshark, or sometimes from inside the card itself if it has its own BIOS, but you'll only see at best packets being sent to and from the computer running Wireshark. You won't see any other traffic across the network. It's quite a common problem. It's to stop people network sniffing, basically. It's by design. If you have trouble getting Wireshark working on an existing card, you should consider purchasing some kind of AirP cap, which is a USB-based 802.11 radio designed to work effectively with Wireshark and any of the other kind of major M-on tools that come with Kali and in Backtrack. It comes with drivers tuned for Wireshark specifically, and it operates really well. An external antenna is also included with the AirP cap, which increases the listening ability for the tool. For Mac users, you should be able to interface with Wireshark directly with your integrated 802.11 radio. I think they use Atheros chips, which are definitely compatible. So this is what you'll generally see when you start. So this is generally what you see when you start Wireshark looking for wireless frames. So when you're troubleshooting a wireless LAN, you can use Wireshark to capture the packets and analyze the flow of packets to see if you can spot the problem. A wireless 802.1x client on the wireless network, for example, may appear connected to the wireless network, but the user isn't able to access any network resources or get internet connectivity. After reviewing the packet trace, you can see that they are being tagged with the correct VLAN, but for some reason that they aren't getting any kind of DNS request through, and it may be that that client has their own personal DNS server set, which needs changing. Wireless packet analysis does require a good understanding of the 802.11 standard and other protocols as well. Some vendors have a habit of adding in some kind of proprietary functions in there as well that may cause a lot of confusion when you're reviewing the flow of packets. Even though it may make life difficult when troubleshooting, you should definitely concentrate on studying the packet captures to learn some details about how wireless networks work, of course. And it means that you'll need to dig into the guts of 802.11 standard as well. Wireshark does offer a lot of tutorials online as well. It is basically a glorified TCP dump for those of you who are more familiar with Linux. It's a great tool to use. It is available for Linux as well. You should definitely check it out and have a play with it. Also, any passwords and things that are being sent across the network in plain text, that use POP3, SMTP, etc., they will be displayed in here. So it's a great tool just for trying to sniff plain text things over the network. So protecting the wireless network. This doesn't just apply to the business, this applies to things at home as well. You need to think about how you could break into a wireless network, and when you start thinking about that, you can think how you protect your own network from it. So the first thing, in my opinion, is to stop broadcasting SSID. It isn't too difficult to circulate a message around your employees to say that if they do want to use the wireless network, here is the SSID, here's the password, and here's whatever key they need to get on there. and they need to set it up manually, it stops people trying to chance their luck, really. But then again, if somebody was intent on attacking your network, they would definitely find an SSID that wasn't broadcasting, even from clients that are connected to it. They'll be able to see what the name is and attack it just as if it was broadcasting anyway. That's not so much of a protection, it's more kind of preventative. Change SSID. A lot of devices have known vulnerabilities online. For instance, if you are advertising that you have a Sky hub or a Virgin Media hub or a Linksys router, people can just do a quick Google search to see what your default admin password is, have a look to see what IP address they should be able to access the main GUI on, and before you know it, they're on the main page because you didn't change your password. It's better just to get it changed anyway, so change the default password. That's not just the wireless password, because a lot of these things have the password stamped on the back of them. You don't know who's actually seen that. It also means change the admin password for the GUI as well. There was a list released at the back end of 2009 for an ISP in the UK where it was basically a spreadsheet of SSIDs and the default passwords for the wireless keys as well. Somebody had compromised some database. I think it was Thomson, the router manufacturer, and they'd posted that on the internet. Get it changed. Make it something more memorable for yourself anyway, because it's a bit of a pain to remember anyway. So use the best encryption that your devices will support. That kind of speaks for itself. The best you can use is probably something like WPA2. However, if you have an old Windows Windows XP machine running Service Pack 1, it's usually really flaky if it does work with WPA2 at all. But it's always best, instead of just saying, okay, well that doesn't work, I'll just put WEP on, do a bit of investigation on your devices and see what encryption it can actually support, and do your best to ensure that your network is as secure as possible. Because just remember, if somebody actually gets on your network, they can see exactly what you're doing. MAC filter, another good layer of defense, which means that you have, say, 5 devices that you know are going to be connecting to your network every day. You just put a MAC filter on to only allow those devices. There'll be some implicit deny rule, only allowing devices with that particular MAC address through. Another good deterrent. Chances are that they won't even get a DHCP address if they're not in the MAC filter. So disable radios outside of office hours. Not only that, but if you were to leave the house for a while, then just turn your wireless router off. I know a lot of these companies tell you to leave it on all the time for line stabilization and things, which is fair enough. If you have a separate access point, I would definitely recommend turning it off. Most Cisco managed networks give you the abilities to actually turn off the wireless network after kind of 6 o'clock at night and not bring it back online again until 7 o'clock the following morning. Check for rogue APs and wireless intruders. Again, if it's a managed network, then there will be some kind of reporting on this that will contain automatic searches for rogue access points, and also look for any wireless intruders, whether it be that they've got through the MAC filter or if they have somehow managed to get onto your management VLAN, etc. Guest network, disable or enable. It can work both ways. If you don't need it, definitely disable it. A lot of devices have it on by default, and it is possible to VLAN hop between guest networks and admin networks as well. And don't forget, on your admin network, chances are they'll be able to get to all of your servers, all of your critical infrastructure on the guest network. The idea is they only get maybe port 80, port 443, and whatever access they need for their email. If you do actually have guests, keep it enabled. It's better to let them use a guest network than it is to use your actual office network. Use the firewall, don't disable it. Some people think that client-side firewalls are the best, which they are. They're very good. They're definitely the best kind of application-level firewall that you can get. However, the firewall on your router is important to stop attacks from external sources. They are usually quite good. They shouldn't have any degradation in performance. If they do, they'll probably tell you, but there'll be some clause there to ensure that you do get a stable service. It's usually very customizable, probably running something like IP tables. and if it's detecting kind of constant hits from a particular IP address, like a denial of service, it will try and block it for you. A client-side or application firewall running on your laptop wouldn't necessarily do that. Disable remote access. There's usually a little box that says allow access from remote locations. It's best off to disable that. If you do need to enable it for some reason, make sure it's down to a particular MAC address or a particular IP address that's allowed through. For instance, if you want to gain access to your home network when you're at work, make sure you go to work and you do a what'smyipaddress.com, and make sure that you only allow access from that particular IP address and a port as well if you wanted to. If you do that, it goes back to point number 3 of change your default password. So if you're saying yes, you're allowed to administer this box remotely, that is another hole. It can be spoofed, so somebody else can see that. Well, it's difficult to do, but some people can see what IP addresses are allowed, and if they know what's allowed, then they can get on and try some passwords. If it's a default one, then back to square one. So change your default password.